Kwame Sapon-Asidu joins us, and I mean, do I need to explain? Kwame Sapon-Asidu is a very important voice in Ghanaian health care policy making and conversations. Of course, he's a CDD fellow. He's also a pharmacist, and he's our guest this morning. Kwame, good morning to you.
Good morning, Kojo, and good morning to all the listeners.
Yeah. All right. I mean, let's perhaps just get straight to brass tacks. Agenda 111 is supposed to be the biggest initiative in healthcare delivery in Ghana's history. It should have been done by now, but we're ending December, and 3 hospitals have been commissioned by the president. That is it, out of 111. But the question is more fundamental than that. The question is, was Agenda 111 ever going to solve any of our important healthcare problems?
Thanks, Kojo. This is a very interesting question. If you say, was it ever going to solve our health problems? The first question is, what are our health problems? Did we know what our health problems were at the outset? And the honest answer is, yes, we did know what our health problems were at the outset, because we pay institutions in the country to bring out reports. One of them is the holistic assessment of the health program of works by the Ministry of Health. And then there's the health facilities assessment report, which also comes out between the Ghana Health Service, the Global Fund, the WHO, and other things. And there's the demographic and health survey that is released by the Ghana Statistical Service, which gives us an idea of our demographics, our age, split, gender, everything, and what are the impacts of our health system on these people. So the correct answer is, we did know what our problems were. And I'm quite sure the health harmonization report has been seen by all of you, and you know what it points to and where our limitations are. The question we need to ask ourselves was, based on all these reports, did you see anywhere that we needed a mass build of hospitals? That's the first question. Did any of the reports I've referred to as journalists that you've seen, have you seen anywhere that they are saying that, oh, we need to build 111 hospitals across the country?
No.
So then it becomes, why do we commission all these reports, get the outcome of these reports, and decide that we are going to do something different from what it says? So that is the basis. To answer your question, therefore, Agenda 111 wasn't going to fix the problems in our health system, because it wasn't identified as a need by our reports that assess the needs of our health systems in the first place.
So what
did never going to do that?
Yeah, what did the reports identify?
Well, the reports, one of the key things that always strikes out for me is the fact that 95%, because the report says 5% of our consultation rooms in our hospitals do not have the basic equipment for accurately diagnosing a patient if they went in there, which means only 5% have, which means 95% don't have. So it says that we need to retool. And you know that we haven't done a retooling of our health system for over a decade. It also says that we don't have basic things like oxygen in many of our district hospitals. It goes on to say that we don't have equipment like, simple scans and other things. It tells us about the problems we have in our antenatal and delivery systems. How was Agenda 111 going to fix this? And ask yourself, the Health and Modernization Assessment Report came out in July 2023. Since that time, we know that between 251 million and 300 million has been invested in Agenda 111. How much has gone into fixing these problems? So how was the misinvestment of our money going to fix the problems we have identified? And for me, this is the bigger conversation we are not having, and we have limited ourselves to, can we finish these hospitals? Will the next government finish it? Will the next government finish it? We are not asking the fundamental question that, did we need to start this mass build in the first place? And what are the implications of this mass build on our health fiscal space and on the next government's ability to deliver for our health system? That's the major question we need to ask. I don't think the question is just about Agenda 111.
Let's talk about the fiscal space for a minute. Currently we spend about 7% of all our expenditure on health, according to the 2023 budget. Anyway,
yes. It didn't come to. In fact, it came to about 6.4. What
right.
You know that normally what they budget and what they use that is different.
True.
So yes, it didn't come to that. But yes, it has been 7%.
Fair enough. Okay. Now, look, if that's the trend, if we spend in that general vicinity, then can we in any realistic way expect that in 2025 we will find the $7.5 billion that we are told is needed to complete Agenda 111?
Kojo, the parties have a saying that Wabesha Oma and Kuwimbusi. To it, if you'd have been given a full cap, you wouldn't have been poured half in the first place. So let's go back to the same budget you referred to. In that budget, if you remember, we were told that 1.28 billion, that was the initial budget for Agenda 111. 1.28 billion was required to complete it, of which 251 million, which was 19.6%, had been dispersed. And the budget made no provision for the difference. But when the Agenda 111 people went, those who are managing it, went before the Health Select Committee, they suddenly said that they would need 1.45 million to complete the project. There was still no money there. So, in essence, from 2023 November till now, the government knew that there was no way they were going to complete those projects because they hadn't voted any money and were under an IMF bailout, so they were not going to conjure money from our proceeds. So they knew. Now, the Ministry of Health is telling us that they need 7.5 billion to complete it, which could, if you add the 251, like I said, the likes of Baltimore have put and the money that has been dispersed at about 300 million. But I was able to lay hands on evidence that 251 million is what has been dispersed. So if you use the 251 million and you add on to the 7.5 billion that we now need, that takes it to 7.7 billion plus for a project that was initially built at 1.28 billion. That's a 505% spend overrun. And now put it in this context. This is a country where we need 3 billion for liquidity support from the IMF over 3 years. So, Kojo, if you then ask me that we are going to the IMF to go and look for 3 billion, of which they are giving it to us, as they would say in tot, 300 million here, 300 million there, depending on how we meet the targets they've set for us. And you ask me that, do I expect an incoming government to find 7.5 billion in 4 years? Because if I told you that, yes, I'll be selling you snake oil. And in actual fact, if the government did that, they probably will have no money to spend in other aspects of the health system.
So in terms of funding, it's a non-starter. It is unrealistic to expect the new government to complete Agenda 111?
It is not realistic. It is not realistic. It is not realistic at all that they would complete it. In actual fact, if it would be naive if they said they were going to complete it.
But Kwame, we've started these projects. The president commissioned, I think, 3 before the elections. So what happens to the projects that have been started already, and some at various stages of completion?
Did you say the president commissioned 3?
Yes, he commissioned.
Did you really say that?
Yes, he commissioned some of the hospitals.
No. I want to hear you properly before I answer. Did you really say he commissioned?
Yes, I said that.
Okay. You remember on the 18th of September last year when I gave a public lecture at the British Council, and the next day on the 19th I was in your studio. I told yourself and Kojo and Raymond that if this government was even able to operationalize 20 of those hospitals, I gave them a cast iron guarantee that I'll vote for the NPP in the just ended election. Do you remember me saying?
Yes, I remember.
So the 3 that I've commissioned, have you bothered to go and check if even they have the full complement of equipment? If they have staff allocated to them? If there has been a budget allocated for the recruitment of those staff and how they are going to be paid? Why do we deceive ourselves and because of political expediency, hang tapes on buildings? What the president did was to commission buildings. Don't tell me the president commissioned hospitals. The guy wants to cut a tape to a building and then ask yourself, how does that building contribute to the healthcare benefits of the area in which it is? Look, let's look at things very, very well. We have this history of doing this often in our health system where we have huge sunk costs. If you remember, when this outgoing government came in, there was this issue of the Confanoche maternity block that your station highlighted a lot about because it had been started in the area of Kutu Champon. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And it was raised down. Do we learn? So the point is, we need to cut our losses at a point. And to cut our losses, we need to ask ourselves, we've put 251 million or 300 billion, depending on who you want to take the source information from, into this project. How do we prevent our 250 to 300 million from going waste? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Because if we don't operationalize any of these hospitals, fundamentally we've lost the money.
Sure.
And we've lost money we don't have. Because, mind you, we are the IMF looking for 3 billion. So, for some of them that are in areas where there is serious need, for example, a new region that doesn't have a regional hospital or doesn't have a quasi-government hospital like these health, these religious body hospitals, we may have to try and finish those one way or the other. For others, we may want to go into public partnership with some of these, because I heard the former president say, for example, that there were areas where Agenda 111 hospitals were put in place where you already have maybe a Catholic Mission hospital, a Presbyterian hospital or something. Maybe they are struggling for space. Would it be a better option to do a PPP with them so that they finish this new facility, move into it, so that it serves the needs of the area? We may have other areas where you even have private individuals with large hospitals in the area which has been operational for a long time. Could they do PPPs? Could we look at global hospital chains? You know, globally there are people who run hospital chains who may come and look at the portfolio of Agenda 111 and think, actually, we could make some progress with these, operationalize them, pay back the state for what is lost, pay taxes to the states because we are running hospitals in the country, help them train health professionals, and at least cut our losses that way. But like I said in the letter I've just written to the incoming president, anything below 15%, we just need to forget it. We just need to forget it. Because putting any money in there would be akin to digging the National Cathedral hole again. We do not know when we are going to find money to finish it, but we would be committing money into a pit. And for me, that is not smart utilization of scarce resources.
Right. If you just joined us, we're talking to Kwame Sapon-Asiedu. He's a D&D fellow on public health at CDD Ghana. So, Kwame, before the break, I said that when we come back, I'll ask you about staffing levels. Now, first of all, the ambition is huge. 111 new hospitals in every district that doesn't have one. Do we have the ability to staff 111 new hospitals as a country?
Well, Kojo, you need to go back to our health professional to population ratio to answer such a question. So one thing you have to know is that when it comes to hospital health recruitment, it operates like in a pyramid form. So you'd have consultants at the top, registrars, then senior medical officers, house officers, coming down nurses. So based on that pyramid, you can calculate roughly how many health human resource you need for one of such hospitals. Mm-hmm. And if you go into the holistic assessment of health program of works document, which the Ministry of Health produced, you know on average how many doctors we find in a regional hospital and how many doctors we find in a district hospital. These are published by the government. So if the WHO is saying that you need about one doctor to 1,000 population as the optimal number to have a viable functioning health system, and you do not have that as it stands, and you still have no bed syndrome, because you see a lot of people see no bed syndrome as the hospital doesn't have beds. The hospital has no bed syndrome when it doesn't have medical beds available, meaning if you were put in that bed, there wouldn't be health professionals to take care of you, even if there was a bed up.
Right.
And this happens because even the current number of hospitals we have, the hospitals and quasi-government health facilities, if you look at them and you look at the number of doctors we have, and you take out the number of doctors that are in the 5 teaching hospitals and regional hospitals, we do not have enough. That is what we have currently. Because if you look at the 5, even let's say we have 7,000 doctors in Ghana, I'm just using a ballpark figure, right. 7,000 doctors in Ghana, but that includes doctors who've left the country and all that, some of whom are on the list. If you say that the 5 teaching hospitals have a minimum of 200 doctors each because they have people training and all that, that is straight 1,000 you're taking out of them for 5 hospitals. Then when you do it for the 16 regional hospitals and the district hospitals, we do not have enough to run the rest of them. We haven't included the private hospitals in there. So nurses, we have about enough based on our nurse to population ratio. But the problem is we cannot employ them. If you remember, as at November this year, just before the election, the government put out that the portal had been open for 2020 nurses who graduated to be employed. So we have 2020 sitting at home, we have 2021 sitting at home, we have 2022 sitting at home, 2023 sitting at home, 2024 have graduated, they'll come into 5 years sitting at home. You see, and that is why in this letter to the president, I have limited myself to the government's own records and documentation. Because the problem I find, Kojo, is that our government plays a game with us. They tend to put information in different reports and documents, knowing that few of us would read all the documents and try and say, if you cross-tabulate and cross-reference, these informations don't add up because what's in this document for the same information is different from what's in this document. Meanwhile, they are all official government documents. So we do not have enough of doctors. Some are migrating. We train nurses, we give them money. We have a 5-year backlog by the very government's records. Why do we have that? Because we cannot get financial clearance from the Ministry of Finance to employ them because we say we don't have money. Meanwhile, we are giving them allowance to train, to come and sit at home for 5 years. And then we are building 110 hospitals for which we need 7.5 billion that we don't have. I mean, you cannot even make this up for a horror movie or a soap opera. You can't. You just cannot make this up for a horror movie or a soap opera. But yet, at the height of the campaign, we've had a president who sees all these documents because the buck stops with him. He commissions all these things, walking around and cutting the tape for 3 buildings and calling them hospitals. I mean, let's stop the jokes in this country, Kojo. It's no longer funny.
So, Kwame, I mean, where do you think the mistake happened? I mean, is it just poor arithmetic? Did someone just not do the maths? You know, for us to have committed already about $250 million has gone into this project. And out of it, we've had 3 buildings commissioned. Was it just a failure to properly calculate the mathematics of the logistics to determine that there is no way on God's green earth that we can staff 111 hospitals?
Although I don't want to say it was arithmetic, I think it was just brazenness and bloody-mindedness. And I'll tell you why. Because you guys interviewed me when it was first announced at the height of COVID, and I did this mathematics, and I remember the word I used. I said, this is not even mathematics, it's just simple arithmetic. That was exactly what I said in 2020. I said, this is not even mathematics, it's simple arithmetic. But I reminded you that we were going into an election year. So we needed help to procure votes. When I came out to your studios on the 30th of October to review the health manifestos of the, the political parties, I pointed out that based on the promises in the NPP manifesto, they needed 13.6 billion. I was told that it was inaccurate. But meanwhile, they knew that they needed 7.5 billion to finish Agenda 111, which was part of the things that was in their manifesto. You see, so they deliberately gaslight us. It's deliberate. Even when you sat down and done the math and you tell them that this is what the number is, they will tell you it's a lie. And then when you finish, they'll turn around and tell you we'll bring the correct number. And up to this day, you can ask Ivan Spencer that when Dr. Isiasa said he was going to bring the numbers, has he brought it? You can ask Winston. He also requested for the numbers. Have they come in? At that time, didn't they know that the Ministry of Health was saying that we need 7.5 billion? So don't let us give people credit that they got the maths wrong. They didn't get the maths wrong. They knew that they could use this to gaslight us, so we vote for them. It's as simple as that. And now they have committed the country to a huge bank cost that we need the next government to figure out what they are going to do about.
All right. Now, so far, your suggestion is that any of these 111 hospitals that is less than 15% complete should be completely abandoned because we just can't afford it. And then we should focus on the ones that are in areas that are in dire need of a hospital and where the completion level is appreciable. But that would leave massive losses. Abandoned projects are physical lost money. That's what they represent. If we can't afford to complete it, can we afford to lose the money that we will lose by not completing these projects?
Kojo, in project management, sunk cost calculations are done in 2 ways. You look at how much you've committed vis-a-vis how much you are left to commit. So now you've committed 251 million. You need 7.5 billion. The 251 million was 19.6% of your initial budgeted cost of 1.2 billion. Now, you have an overrun of 505%. You need 3 billion from the World Bank that you do not have. You cannot go to the capital market to borrow because you've been shut out. Do you say, I would lose some of the 251 million and get the whole project audited to see if there was a value for money assessment done and whether there are people who are culpable? Because you have to remember that this wasn't done through the Ministry of Health. It was done through the presidency. So you need to do an audit and find out, are there people who are culpable in this loss, and can they be held accountable? Rather than commit yourself to committing 7.5 billion, because you'll be behaving like the typical Ghanaian who tries to build a house. You first buy land, then you put some sand on the land, then you make some blocks, then you dig a foundation. Next minute you are where some land guys have gone and they've taken the land and they've done something with it. As we speak now, you know that when this Agenda 111 started, they were taking lands in lieu of building Agenda 111. Are you aware that they took lands from the prisons, service, around Roman Ridge, 5 acres? Suddenly they said they are not going to use those lands for Agenda 111. And they should have known, because look at the number of hospitals in Accra and in that. As journalists, I'm not going to say the rest, but go and check what has happened to those lands. The lands were not returned back to the prison service, and the lands have not gone back to the state. Go and find out who has those lands now. 5 acres, which is 20 plots. Just go and check. You see, so when I look at some of these things that have happened in the name of Agenda 111, and anyone tells me that we should commit more money, then I'm just trying to think, the person really doesn't think well of this country. And that is why, for me, I said with this one, I wasn't going to go with conjecture in writing to the president. I was going to just limit myself to official documents and what they say. So it's not something we should even dream of. Because we have 7.5 billion. You want 3 billion from, we haven't. So if you say we should complete it with what?
Kwame, you are writing a letter to the incoming president. Just in a nutshell, to sum up this conversation, what are your recommendations to the incoming president regarding Agenda 111?
Well, I have said that he should go back. My recommendations are simple. He should go back to the official documents and see the ails of our health system, because they are spelled out in black and white. He can check the demographic health survey from the Statistical Service, the health harmonization facilities assessment, and the holistic assessment. It has enough information around the ills of our health system. When he's found out what the problem with our health system is, he has to juxtapose it with the funds that we have to commit to Agenda 111 and see if committing those funds to the Agenda 111 cause would be value for money compared with solving the problems we've already identified in our health system. And so that is the summary I am trying to get the former and incoming president to do. Look at our own records, official government records, and tell us what the problems of our health system are by the official government records. And then tell us whether Agenda 111 fits the bill to fix those problems. That's all I want him to do. And finally, to audit all the monies that have gone into the Agenda 111 project till date, and also have his eyes on all the lands that were taken in lieu of Agenda 111, and speak to the state institutions, like today I've mentioned one, the prisons. They can go and speak to the Director General of Prisons. Speak to them and find out whether the lands have been used for Agenda 111, and if not, whether they've been returned to the state institution, and if not, who has the lands. That's all I want him to do.
Right. Kwame, I want to say a big thank you to you for your time with us this morning. Lots to think about, as always, and we appreciate you for that.
Thanks for having me.